The sound of hooves echoed in the air. Mason Cree appeared, a man who trafficked in just about everything from bootleg liquor to human lives. His eyes were as cold as steel, and what came out of his mouth made Rowan think he had misheard. 3 days, Pierce, just keep this beast for me. $300. Rowan needed the money so badly. He did not ask a single question. Not until Mason gave the iron cage in the middle of the yard a hard kick. The tarp flew off. Rowan's breath caught in his throat. Inside was a massive Apache woman. Her muscles rippled under a layer of dust. She was hanging upside down by her ankles from an iron beam. Her hands tied behind her back. Her hair trailing to the ground. Blood had rushed to her face, turning her lips a deep purple. But her eyes, those eyes were wide open, deep and dark, burning with such pride that Rowan instinctively took half a step back. Mason let out a sneer. The circus in Denver pays top dollar. An Apache this big. Rare as hell. I'm only keeping her for a few days till they come pick her up. Unless you want to take a crack at her first. Rowan clenched his fists. The $300 in his coat pocket weighed on him like a stone chained to his conscience. The wind whistled through the broken fence posts. Rowan looked into those upside-down eyes, and for the first time, he saw himself. Small and so unbearably cowardly, he could hardly stand it. The first morning passed slowly. Sunlight spilled onto the cracked earth, lighting up every streak of dust clinging to the iron cage. Tala was still hanging upside down, her muscular body swaying gently in the early breeze. Blood had been rushing to her head for far too long, turning her face a deep bruised red. Her ears were ringing, but her eyes still burned like fire. Rowan sat a few steps away, his gun resting on his lap, trying to keep the cold expression Mason had demanded. But the truth was, not once had he looked directly at her without something inside him trembling like an old brittle string. A human being hung upside down for hours should be crying, begging, cursing. But Tala only looked at him the way one might look at a strange gust of wind. No hatred, no weakness, just steady, so proud that it felt like she was not being strung up, but standing tall in the middle of a battlefield. By late morning, Rowan could not take it anymore. "Can you hear me?" he asked. His voice blunt, but tinged with worry. Tala blinked once slowly, then gave a small nod. Even in that painful position, her response was eerily calm. Rowan let out a breath and held a cup of water to her lips. "I am not trying to hurt you. I have to do what Mason pays me for." Tala gave a tired smile, lifting one corner of her mouth. "White man always say that." Her voice was deep, upside down but firm, each word landing like a stone on the ground. "I am not like them." Rowan shot back, though the words lacked conviction. "Not yet," Tila replied. That short reply hit him straight in the heart. Rowan stood, pacing back and forth, bitter with himself. She was right. He was guarding an innocent woman, taking $300 to look away from cruelty. Then Tala spoke again, slow, clear. Each word weighed like it cost a piece of her life. "I protect Apache children. White men hunt them. I used a knife, killed one. They caught me, beat me, locked me in cage like animal." Rowan swallowed hard. The story was simple yet heavy as a mountain. A woman who stood up to protect children now hung upside down in a cage like some bizarre exhibit. "How much is the circus paying?" Rowan asked. Tala stared straight at him, unblinking. "More than the price of your soul." The answer struck Rowan silent. The midday wind passed through, carrying the faint clinking of chains. Rowan leaned down to check the ropes, mostly just to delay the moment when he would have to face the truth. He was guarding a warrior, not a criminal. A woman unafraid of death, only afraid of being treated like a beast. And in that moment, Rowan finally faced what he had been avoiding all morning. 3 more days. And if Mason returned on schedule, Tala would never see the free sky again. Rowan sat down, his back resting against an old wooden post, eyes fixed on the distant mountains. He did not know what to do. Did not know if right and wrong even mattered in a land like this. But he knew one thing. Those upside-down eyes would haunt him to his grave. If he let her be sold like an animal in a circus. And for the first time in years, Rowan felt something inside his heart, small, but still alive. Night fell. The sky looked as if someone had thrown a heavy black blanket over it. No stars. Only the wind slicing through rotted wood, sounding like someone sighing in the dark. The whole ranch sank into a silence so thick. It felt as if even the land itself was holding its breath, waiting on the fate of the woman hanging upside down. Rowan lit an oil lamp and set it next to the iron cage. The dim yellow light fell on Tala's body, which trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the blood that had been pooling in her head for far too long, making the veins at her temples throb visibly. She was still conscious, but her breathing came in ragged bursts like a warrior clinging to the edge of a cliff. "I am going to lower you a little, just to help with the numbness," Rowan whispered, his hands shaking. Tala answered with a long, steady breath. Her eyes closed for a second, then opened again, still sharp as blades. There was no hatred in that look, only pride, fighting to the very last breath. Rowan gently turned the hanging mechanism, easing the tension on her body. Tala let out a muffled cry of pain, but did not scream. She clenched her jaw, her core tightening like a drawn bow. "You are going to rupture something," Rowan murmured, his voice sounding more like guilt than concern. "I have survived." "Worse," Tala replied, her words broken but firm. Rowan sat on the ground, leaning against a wooden post, listening to her heavy breathing. Every breath she took was like a needle in his chest. She did not deserve this. No one did. He thought back to the war the bodies hung on stakes, the men who chose gold over their own souls. He remembered the night he ran from battle out of fear and lived on for years only to feel hollow inside. "Do you think I am like Mason?" Rowan asked. Dala opened her eyes. In the dark, her pupils were as deep as wells. "I do not know," she said. "But I see you are afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid of yourself." Rowan froze. No one had ever said that to him before. No one had ever seen straight through him the way she did. The night wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and rusted metal. The land around them felt like an open graveyard. Rowan stood, draped an old coat over the cage to keep the wind from cutting her skin. "Why do you not scream or beg hanging like that? Most people would panic." Tala tilted her head slightly, even though the pain must have been immense. "Because screaming saves no one," she said. "But looking them in the eyes makes them weaker." Rowan said nothing. Her words were simple, but they carried the spirit of an entire people pushed to the edge. He poured a little water and pressed it gently to her lips. Tala drank in tiny sips as if it were more precious than gold. Not the water, but the hope it carried. Rowan knelt beside the iron bars. He pressed his forehead to the cold steel. "There are only two of us here tonight," he said. "If you die in this cage before Mason comes back, it means I killed you. No one else." Tala looked at him for a long time. "Then do not let me die," she said softly. It was not a plea. It was the command of a warrior. And in that moment, Rowan understood that from this night forward, he would no longer have the courage to leave her behind, not even for one more night. The second night. A strange night, so quiet that Rowan felt as if the universe itself were holding its breath, waiting for something to crack open. Wind howled through the broken fence posts. The sky was black as tar. Rowan sat beside the iron cage, carefully wrapping strips of cloth around Tala's swollen ankles. Her body occasionally shuddered, twisting slightly from being suspended too long. But those eyes, they were still the only flame keeping him from collapsing. "You are going to be all right," Rowan whispered, though it sounded more like he was trying to convince himself. Tala answered with a faint breath. "No one can hang my soul upside down." He wanted to believe that. And then he heard the sound that sent his heart plunging. Hoof beats a day early. One, then two, and then the raspy laughter of Mason Cree tore through the night like a dull blade. Rowan shot to his feet. Mason stumbled off his horse, reeking of alcohol so thick the wind itself seemed too heavy to blow past it. His eyes were bloodshot and his mouth twisted into a grin soaked in cruelty. "I missed this beast." Mason chuckled. "Thought I would drop by to see if it is still breathing." He stepped toward the cage, his sweaty, filthy hand reaching out not to check, but to touch. Rowan stepped in front of him. "Mason, you are drunk. Come back in the morning. Move, Pierce." Mason's voice shifted from drunken haze to sharp steel in a single breath. "I bought her fair and square. I will do what I want." He shoved Rowan's shoulder, but Rowan did not move. Mason paused, annoyance flashing in his eyes at being challenged. "Do not touch her," Rowan said quietly, but firmly. For the first time in years, his hands were steady. Mason burst out laughing. "You gone soft, a broke nobody like you trying to play hero? You are just a damn guard dog, Pierce. I toss you $300 and you roll over." Rowan wanted to walk away. Let it pass. But Tala's pained breathing behind him and her eyes filled with unspoken trust snapped the last thread inside him. Mason pulled out the cage key, fumbling with the lock. "Stop." Rowan said it one final time. Mason turned, startled to see Rowan already had his gun drawn. Steady, unshaking. "Put the key down," Rowan said. "And leave." Mason narrowed his eyes, voice sinking low. "You think you can do this and walk away alive?" Rowan swallowed hard. "I do not know. But I know this. I am not letting you lay hands on someone tied up in a cage. Not tonight. Not ever." The air froze. Mason's two henchmen fell silent behind him, their hands drifting toward their guns. Rowan stepped back. Gun aimed straight at Mason. "Drop the key. Leave." Inside the cage, Tala let out a long breath, not of pain, but of release. Mason roared. "You're dead, Pierce." Rowan did not blink. "Maybe, but not tonight. And not by letting you touch her." In that moment, Rowan made his choice. He had just thrown away $300, his future, and his last chance at surviving out here. But when he looked into Tala's eyes, still burning like wildfire, even hanging upside down, Rowan knew at last he had chosen to stand with humanity instead of the darkness. Thank you for being here with me. If this story took you back to dusty afternoons and the echo of hoofbeats in your soul, subscribe to my channel so that each day we can sit together again and I will tell you another story from the Old West. The night wind grew stronger as Mason and his two men finally rode off, cursing, threatening. Their shadows stretched across the ground like angry beasts, but they left. That was all that mattered. Rowan stood still for a long moment, his gun still aimed at the dusty road until the sound of hoofs faded completely into the darkness. When he turned back, the oil lamp cast a warm glow over Tala's face, bruised, swollen, and aching. But her eyes were as unshakable as stone pillars. "I am still alive," she whispered, her voice broken. "Not sure yet," Rowan replied, his breath still uneven. "But from now on, no one touches you again." He stepped toward the cage. His hands trembled, not from fear of Mason, but from the weight of what he was about to do. From this moment on, he was defying the law and the entire white world of the western frontier. The key burned hot in his hand, searing both his conscience and his fear. "Are you ready?" he asked. Tala gave a faint nod, even though her neck was numb from being upside down. Blood still surging through every bulging vein. Rowan unlocked the cage. The iron door creaked open. He reached in, lifting her heavy frame, all muscle, bone, and iron will. She let out a strangled cry as he gently lowered her from the hanging rope. "Easy, easy now," Rowan whispered. When her feet touched the ground, Tala staggered like someone returned from the dead. Her body convulsed slightly as the blood rushed back down. Rowan held her by the shoulders, his hands straining to support the weight of a warrior nearly half again his size. "I can stand," Tala said, trying to push his hands away. "Not tonight," Rowan replied. "You've been through enough." He helped her out of the barn and sat her down by the wooden wall. Tala took a deep breath, her eyes closing for a few seconds. And for the first time since he met her, her pride allowed itself to rest. Just a little. Thank you, she said softly. Very softly, Rowan knelt in front of her, opened his water pouch, and brought it to her lips. Drink. You will need your strength if you are going to make it far. Tala drank in careful sips, as if drinking life itself. When her breathing steadied, Rowan stood and opened the stable door. He brought out the best horse he had, the only one he had left. The saddle was still warm from the afternoon Sunday. You will need it, he said. Tala looked at him for a long time. That gaze, part gratitude, part suspicion, and part disbelief at kindness too easily offered. Rowan handed her his old gun. I do not claim to be a good man, but I know one thing for sure. I cannot let you be sold like an animal. She took the gun and looked up at the sky as if calling the names of her ancestors. Rowan Pierce, she said with weight in her voice. They will come for you. Mason will not forget this. I know. And still you let me go because if I did not, I would spend the rest of my life as a walking corpse. Tala mounted the horse, her long, strong legs still trembling but full of resolve. Before riding off, she leaned down and placed her large hand on Rowan's chest right over his heart. Tomorrow. You might die, she said. At least tonight. I did what was right. Tala gave a faint nod, kicked the horse aside, and vanished into the night. Rowan stood there alone in the abandoned ranch, watching her figure disappear into the dark mountains, and knew that from that very moment his life had turned onto a path he could never return from. Dawn had not yet touched the mountains. When Rowan heard the sound of hooves, not a gallop, but a slow, deliberate rhythm meant to instill fear. He knew instantly. Mason Cree was back. And this time he was not drunk. He was sober, furious, and driven by one clear purpose to kill him. Rowan led his horse toward the narrow canyon behind the ranch. He had no plan, nothing but the instincts of a man who had survived the battlefield. But he knew that if Mason caught him at the ranch, he would burn it all down with Rowan inside. The canyon was tight, steep rock walls rising on either side. The light barely strong enough to catch the dust hanging in the air. Rowan looked back. Mason and his two men had appeared at the mouth of the canyon, silhouetted in black against the gray sky. P.S. Mason roared, his voice echoing off the canyon walls like a predator's growl. You pulled a gun on me yesterday. Now I've come to collect. Rowan said nothing. He raised the only gun he had left, the old revolver he had not given to Tala. Both of them knew it had only a few bullets left, but a few might be enough to make the three of them hesitate. Mason! Rowan shouted, his voice bouncing down the canyon. Turn around. I do not want to kill anyone. Mason laughed. You think I came here to talk? You cost me a shipment. That Apache was worth $1,000. I'll take it back in blood. Then Mason gave the signal. His two men split off to the sides, climbing the rocks to get shooting positions. Rowan dropped flat just as the first bullet tore through where he had been standing. Dirt and stone exploded around him. He rolled behind a boulder and fired. Bang! One of the men took a bullet to the shoulder and tumbled off his horse. The second returned fire, a round slamming into the rock inches from Rowan's head. The echo was deafening, but Rowan got back up and fired twice. The first shot missed. The second hit the horse's leg, sending the